There are parts of ourselves we learn to live around. We see them, the habits that don't serve us, the patterns that we repeat, and the parts of our history that don't sit neatly beside the version of ourselves we prefer to present to the world. So we adjust and build around them and learn to live our lives around those parts. I think we refine what is visible, what appears easy to the eyes, and leave certain things untouched, hoping that if we move carefully enough, we won't have to confront them. I'm finding that it works until it doesn't. Life is revealing to me that those patterns are not always individual. Sometimes they are inherited. What one generation avoids, the next generation learns to manage. No one said it outright, but we learned it all the same. Watching the women in my family, I saw how silence can make the unacceptable feel normal. We were taught how to get by, and we learned to live with that. There are ways of being that feel natural because they have always been present. It's the endurance without the examination. Keep going. The reverence of strength without rest. Keep going. And it's practiced faith, but not always reflected on because we have to keep going. That is not living. That is survival. And survival patterns left unchecked can become limitations. I've been sitting with the book of Haggai, and what strikes me is how direct the message is. The people have returned and rebuilt their homes. They're attending to their own lives, putting energy into what they could see and manage. However, the foundational work that required attention, the work of restoring what was meant to be central, had been left undone. I don't think it was because they didn't care, but because it was easier to focus on what felt immediate. There's a line repeated more than once. Consider your ways. And that sits differently when you come from a people who learn how to survive by focusing on what was necessary in the moment, because survival does not always leave room for reflection. When your focus is on keeping your land, feeding your family, or maintaining your dignity in the face of a system designed to strip it away, you prioritize what keeps life moving. But generations later, the question shifts. Not did we survive, but what does survival shape in us? For me, that question has become personal. The next part of my life is asking something different of me, and I'm realizing something I hadn't named plainly before. All I know how to do is survive. There's a small part of me that thought suffering and strife were just part of my lot in life. What's being revealed to me now is that that's not holy. It's fear. I know how to endure. I know how to carry what is heavy. I know how to move forward even when things are unclear. I mean, a girl knows how to struggle, but I am now learning how to live beyond that. The realization is not easy to sit with because it asks me to look honestly at what I've inherited, not just the strength, but the patterns that keep strength necessary. To acknowledge that what carried me this far may not be what will carry me forward. This requires a different kind of courage. The courage to examine, the courage to question what I've accepted, the courage to forgive myself for not knowing better when I had to make tough decisions or sought softness in my life. This is not easy because for many of us, it feels easier to stay where we are. Haggai, however, did not allow for that. He says, consider your ways, not your effort, not your intention, your ways. That kind of reflection is not about condemnation. It's about alignment. And alignment requires movement. It requires us to look honestly at what we've prioritized, what we've neglected, and what we've quietly accepted as good enough. There are parts of our family histories that are difficult to face, old wounds, unspoken truths, patterns that were passed down because they worked at the time. To look at them clearly is to risk discomfort, but to avoid them is to remain in a version of ourselves that is incomplete. What was necessary for survival is not always what is needed for growth. The kind of urgency Haggai speaks to does not just rebuild what is visible, but restores what is foundational. That work is not easy, but neither is living with what we've avoided. At some point, we all have to decide, will we continue to build around what we've inherited, or will we have the courage to examine it and choose carefully what we carry forward?